Well, what can be done? Well, joining me to discuss this is Ros Altman, a consumer finance expert, and Katie Morley, a personal finance reporter at The Telegraph. Katie, let me start with you. Do you think young people have had a rough ride over the last 5 years?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people have just reached adulthood and are trying to be financially independent after what has been, one of the biggest recessions over the last century. So naturally, they've struggled. I mean, they're being encouraged to get into a lot of debt, not only through student loans, but through enormous mortgages that are really stretching their finances. Rents are taking up enormous parts of their salary as well. And they've struggled on the job market. The job market's been very difficult. So just at the time when people are trying to get that adult independence, it's been really tough for them. And what I worry most about is that this is a problem that is not going to go away. People are getting themselves into so much debt, and so is the country, that it really worries me about the future of young people in this country.
OK, Ros, what do you make of that argument?
Well, I have every sympathy, and it worries me too that we had a crisis caused by too much debt, and policies that have been pursued to overcome the crisis seem to have encouraged even more debt. And also, those policies have been responsible for this massive rise in house prices, coupled, of course, with not building enough homes. But I think that's probably not the same issue as the one where people are saying, well, you've got 65 to 70-year-olds who are relatively better off than 20 to 25-year-olds. I mean, that's a separate issue, and I think I'm worried about this intergenerational envy, if you like, and intergenerational strife that seems to be being stirred up.
Except that, I mean, if you look at what's happened over the last 5 years, I mean, all of the cuts to the social security budget have all been on people of working age. Pensioner benefits have largely been protected and ring-fenced.
Except if you look at the income of most pensioners, I'm not talking about the very well-off, most pensioners don't have very high incomes. We have one of the lowest state pensions in the developed world. The problem we've got is that we've got an uneven distribution of income and wealth. And you've got the top 20% of pensioners who are incredibly well off. You've got pensioners like the one we saw in the clip just before, who've had very generous public sector final salary pensions, which most people in the private sector won't have, and indeed don't have. Only 20% of the population are in the public sector of the working population.
So really the argument then is for reducing public sector pensions rather than striking out at older people per se?
I think my point would be that younger people haven't yet had the opportunities that older people have already had. So, there is the outlook for younger people as the economy grows, as things get better, for them to catch up. It may seem difficult to imagine that after 5 years of a recession, but I think it's coming.
Things don't change unless policy allows them to. And at the moment, the older generation has, they have such a stronghold over the vote that actually politicians are doing everything for the favour of the older generation. I don't like this idea that young people are envious of the older generation. I don't think they are actually. And David Cameron has picked up on that, and he has said that young people don't want to think of their parents and grandparents in a dire situation, and of course nobody does. But also, I don't think that parents and grandparents would like to think of their children in the future struggling.
Right.
But at the moment, if things carry on the way they are, that is what's going to happen.
Can you blame the politicians when young people just don't vote? Older people turn out and vote.
The thing is, there's not, as the Daily Telegraph has already pointed out, there's actually not enough young people to make a real difference in the vote. The baby boomers are a very big generation, and even if all the young people went and voted, turned out to vote, they still, it still wouldn't make a big difference. So